Hello, and welcome to TechHub.training. This is the Tableau solution for Vintage Voyage Sales Dashboard. Let's jump into it. For this challenge, we're creating a monthly sales dashboard for the CEO who owns a vintage toy company. They sell things like classic cars, motorcycles, planes, ships, vintage cars, and the CEO wants to compare last month's sales to last month's sales in the prior year and give us the year-over-year comparison. He also wants to see last month's sales broken out by week and for each product line. So we've put that all together in this dashboard, but let's break down the steps that we took to get here. First of all, in order to make this dashboard dynamic, meaning as we go from month to month, Tableau recognizes what today's date is and gives us the sales for last month and last month prior year. We'll need to use date calculations. I've made some date calculations here for beginning of last month and end of last month, which we'll reference in our last month sales. Beginning of last month, we'll get there by referencing today, which in this exercise is May 31st, 2005. If we were doing this actually, we would use the today function, which will pull today's date. Date trunk allows us to go to the beginning of a date interval. So we're going to the beginning of the month as of today, which will give us the beginning of this month. Date add allows us to increment or add or subtract date intervals to certain dates. So from the beginning of this month, we will subtract with a -1 month to give us the beginning of last month. I've also added a date function here, which converts date time to date. This isn't crucial for the calculation. It'll give us the same end result, but I've gotten into the habit of wrapping everything in a date function so that when we want to display the date, it'll look better in a date format rather than date time. Something similar for end of last month, we'll take the beginning of the month as of today and go back 1 day, which is going to give us the end of last month. Again, wrapping that in a date function. And we can reference those now in our last month sales calculation by saying if the order date is on or after the beginning of last month and the order date is on or before the end of last month, then show us sales, which is 261,633. Now you might be wondering why we're not using date filters here. I recognize that we could have dragged order date to filters, pulled a relative date, and done show us the previous month. But we're going to be wanting to perform further calculations based on our last month's sales. And so it's going to be easier in the long run to do all of the date filtering within the calculation itself. If you went above and beyond and did the extra challenge, we made a last month sales title. This introduces one more date function called date name. This gives us a string for the date name of the date interval for the specific date. So we're telling us to return the date name of the month for the beginning of last month. In this case, this will show April. Add a space, give us the date name of the year. In this case, it will show us 2005 in string format. Add a space and say sales. So that is a string function that in our case returned April 2005 sales. And that will be dynamic and will adjust going forward into the future. Now to format this nicely, I've gone into text and made last month's sales bold, made them 15-point font, and within the box, right-click Format, Alignment, and centered it so it'll look nice on the dashboard. Let's now go to prior year last month sales. So here I've made the very similar calculations, except now we just need to go back 1 year. So here, prior year, beginning of last month, we are subtracting 1 year with a -1 from the beginning of last month, which we already calculated. So go to the beginning of last month, go back 1 year, convert date time to date. And that's going to give us April 1st for 2004. Very similar prior year, end of last month. We've already made the calculation for end of last month, so let's just go back 1 year, which will give us April 30th, 2004. And then in our prior year last month sales calculation, we can reference those to give us April 2004 sales, which is 206,148. Now this is good news. We are improving year over year. Very similar to what I've done to the prior year last month sales title. Similar formatting. And now we can create our year over year comparison. So that's just one more calculation that subtracts the sum of last month's sales from the sum of prior year last month's sales. Nice and simple, which means we are in the green, 55,485. Now, to make the year over year color, I say if the year over year last month's sales is greater than 0, so if it's positive, then green. Else, it's negative, so show me red. Now, Tableau isn't going to recognize that, oh, this says green, make it a green color, and this says red, make it a red color. We'll have to do that ourselves. Over here, we'll double click on the color, and we can select our green there. And so now going forward, when it is positive, it will show us a green color. And then if it's negative, we can do red as well. Now, wrapping it up with our stacked bar chart. Thanks for hanging in there with me. We are almost done. For this visualization, we needed to group the order dates by week. When we see order date, this only has year, month, day. And Tableau has no quick way to group by week. So we'll have to make our own calculation for week ending. What I've done here is I tell Tableau to go to the beginning, using date trunk, beginning of the week for the order date, and the Tableau default is for the beginning of the week to be Sunday. So this will show us the Sunday of the week of the order date. And then we add 6 days to that to show us the Saturday of the week ending for the order dates. Again, we'll convert to date instead of date time. And now, for every date from April 3rd to April 9th is going to be in this column. April 10th through April 16th is going to be in this column because we're grouping by the Saturday dates. So I've dragged week ending for year, month, and day to columns, last month's sales to rows, product line to color, and I've also filtered for last month's sales is 0, and this will show us only last month. Now, to get this column total here, I've created a reference line, which is in Analytics, drag reference line to cell. And what I've done is say, give me the sum of last month's sales. And now this isn't going to group by product line. It's going to give us the total. And so I've labeled that with value, line none, and that'll give us the total bar along the top. I've also formatted this to show no grid lines. That's just a personal preference. I think it looks nice and clean with no grid lines. Now that all of our sheets are made, we can go ahead and create our dashboard. I dragged text to the top to get our title, Monthly Sales Dashboard. Made that 24 font, and I've filled it with a light gray because I think that looks nice. Then I dragged a horizontal object underneath that so that I can drag in our 3 sheets here. And if we double click there, it'll give us the container. And I've distributed contents evenly. That's a nice function. So that we get a nice even distribution for our 3 sheets here. And then we drag our weekly sales to the bottom. We make sure to show our legend right here for our color legend. And I've made that floating so that we can drag it over the sheet. And that is how we make our beautiful automated monthly sales dashboard for Vintage Voyage. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this challenge, and I hope that it's been fun creating this dashboard and making it automated for the CEO so that going forward, those date calculations will automatically update this report to show last month sales. We'll see you next time.